So all right, everybody, welcome to another episode of The Urban Gardener. I want to thank you all so much for joining me here today on this episode. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button down below. Follow along with more garden adventures as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener. It's a really, really nice day out today. I am in Las Vegas, Nevada. We've got a really incredible opportunity to sit down and talk with YouTube's most prolific gardener, John Kohler. We're here in his backyard, Las Vegas garden. He's got a few things he's going to show us here in the garden. And we'll sit down and we'll have a few questions for him and have a nice little discussion about gardening and YouTubing. So let's get growing. All right, John, so what have you got growing on here in your backyard garden?
I got lots of stuff. It's the springtime currently. I mean, today is probably almost hitting 80 on the thermometer over there. So things are bolting really fast. So I'm actually harvesting as quickly as possible, putting my food up, preserving it, and juicing it and eating. You know, I ate 5 heads of lettuce yesterday out of my garden for dinner. And as you guys can see, like I have lots of stuff growing. So like this is a brassica / celery / beet bed. And a lot of the brassicas are flowering since the weather's getting warmer. Over on this side we have sugar magnolia snap peas. So these are really cool peas because they're besides being purple, which means there's more anthocyanins in there, so that means they're healthier for you guys to eat. They taste good. They're also tendril peas, so they make the tendrils that you could actually just chop off and add them to salads. Let's see, down below there I got carrots, which I could harvest the carrot roots to eat, and then also the greens are also edible. And then below that I have some edible flowers for me to eat, as well as the beneficial insects. And then in here I have a lot of pods, so this is a wide walkway. I like to maximize my space. And we have Canna adalis, which has edible tubers or roots underneath. Then I have a whole bunch of ashitaba that's from Japan that I grew here in my garden, dug up after last season, and I'm just growing them in little 4 inches. I'll probably place some of those around my garden somewhere. We have mint in containers, which is the best way you guys should be growing your mint. And I want to stop right here because this is one of my favorite plants that more people should know about. This one right here, which actually has some aphid issues, so I need to handle that. This is called Ricardia picroides, and there's no actually English name. And this actually, I guess, is from like Europe, somewhere maybe like the Mediterranean, Malta. And so you think it might look like dandelion. This is not dandelion at all. This looks like dandelion, but instead of being like, you know, kind of bitter like dandelion, you could eat it. It actually has a rather sweet taste to it. So it's like sweet dandelions. They grow like a weed. This is the second year that this plant has been growing here. It basically went to flower, set seed. It turned brown after it set seed. I chopped it off and then it just grew back. And then you can see right here, this is a baby that came up from seed on its own without me replanting it. So overall, that's like my goal. I want to have like these like everywhere. I will let them go to seed. I'll collect some seeds, but then I just let them blow around, and I just want them to come up on their own so that I don't have to do all the work. Because this guy grows really well. This is more of a wild food. Whereas as you guys can see, I have the, you know, let's see, dazzling blue dinosaur kale. It's now flowering. You know, so this, I only literally planted this late, like in January. It's now like March. So it's been growing 3 months now. It's basically done. And this guy produces nice leaves. After this, it'll just keep growing the year and year. In the back here, I had a hard winter this time. I lost a lot of my longevity spinach that was against this wall. I was just covering it for a little while, and that wasn't good enough to prevent it from the cold. So then I put all these old school Christmas tree lights up that I got at Home Depot on clearance. They're the ones that actually make a little bit of heat. And this was on a timer, so that every night, photo timer, so that every night when it got dark, these white guys would come on. And then for a while I had these covered with this on, and now that it's getting warmer, I basically just turn this off now since we don't need them. But I might just leave the lights up, so I have to take them, put it back up next year, and they'll just kind of be buried in there. But that guy's coming back, and that's a perennial. So I really want to encourage you guys to grow perennial greens because then you don't have all this. my spinach, which is now flowering. You know, you gotta plant spinach, it flowers, you harvest it, and then it's done, then you gotta replant this. So this is gonna get peppers. And if you look closely in here, I have garlic planted in between the peppers to maximize my space so that I can grow more than one crop. I'm gonna end up pulling out and harvesting all the spinach, making spinach salad out of it, and then the garlic will continue to grow, and where the line that the spinach was in, or the row that the spinach was in, is now gonna get the peppers. And you guys can see some of the summer crops that I'll be putting in. It's all in little, you know, 4-inch pots here and some 6-packs. We got the sweet banana peppers. They're the best pepper to grow in Las Vegas that I found anyways. That's commonly available. And I got some Malabar spinach, and I got some sugar beets. So actually I want to show you guys the sugar beets right now, because your sugar beets is one crop you guys should grow. Not to make white processed sugar, but actually to grow, because it's an amazing plant actually. That is one of my favorites. All right, so this right here is a sugar beet plant. It's finally going to set seed now, and it took over a year. So this has been growing for the whole year. And look at this guy at the bottom here. I mean, this guy is like popping out of the ground, super huge. And for the full year plus it's been growing, it's been making these nice edible beet greens that you guys could eat. That's similar to like eating some Swiss chard. Also, it has a nice sweet root that you guys could eat as well. It's an heirloom, you know, and I want to encourage you guys to grow heirlooms. This is a non-GMO sugar beet, as most beets are, you know, GMO. Next to this actually is a really cool plant. It's flowering now for the first year, and it looks kind of like a mess right now, but this is what it looks like. It's kind of going to flower. This one is known as the Cretan rock lettuce. So this is actually from Crete, another Mediterranean kind of like plant. And this grows in the rocks like wild. So I've been growing it here in Las Vegas for, this is going on the second year. It grew last year in the springtime, and then as soon as it got hot, it like didn't like it. It just basically retreated to the root. It stayed alive, and then when it started to cool down, it came up. And then now that it's springtime, it's going to flower, and then I'm sure maybe in the summertime it's gonna hibernate again. Hopefully it's gonna stay alive, but this year I'm gonna collect the seeds. And the cool thing about this plant is that you guys gotta taste it. I mean, I'm just gonna break off the flowering top. I probably shouldn't have done that because I wanna let these go to seed. But if you eat the flowering top, which usually, like if you pick this flowering top on this kale, it'd be like bitter, kind of nasty. This one, once again, like the Riccardia pigroides, this one's actually kind of sweet. It has a nice, mild, like green, delicious flavor to me. But after all, my YouTube channel is called Growing Your Greens, and I love eating the leafy greens, and I want you guys to eat more leafy greens in your life. Now we're on the original side of my yard that I put in first. These are 4-foot wide circular raised beds, and I have like 20 of these guys. Everyone has a little bit different. But this guy is one of my perennial vegetables that I think you guys should be growing. It's actually known as Egyptian walking onions, as well as I have some clumping onions in the back here that are going to flower right now. So there's two kinds, but primarily they're the Egyptian walking onions all up in here. And once again, the reason why I like these guys, unlike standard onions, is they grow year round. So right now I have basically unlimited green onions to harvest off these guys. I could also harvest the roots underneath, the onion bulb, which happen to be a lot smaller and more phytonutrient rich than standard onions. They have a nice bite to them. And then later in the year, they'll make the onion top sets, which basically are little small baby onion bulbs that you guys can eat on the top. And how this normally works is they got the onion bulb on the top, and they basically fall over, and then the onion bulb plants itself. And this is actually what the onion bulb top looks like right here. It basically just falls off, plants itself. And as you guys can see, this is now turning into a new plant. So now I could just plant this somewhere, and it looks like it does need to be buried because it's been on the top of the soil. But these guys will grow into new plants, and it's just basically self-regenerating. So maybe we'll plant this in one of my fig trees that we'll show you guys next. All right, so just planted those onions here right inside, actually this guy, inside the fig tree as like the base layer. But I want to let you guys know, aside from growing my greens, I also like to grow fruit trees. Unfortunately for me, the fruit trees take up a lot more space than vegetables. And for me, like a raised bed garden with vegetables basically can be productive 12 months out of a year in my climate zone. Whereas even if I grow a fruit tree, most fruit trees only fruit once a year. Maybe some might fruit twice a year, maybe 3 times a year if you're lucky. Like my goji berries, I'll fruit 3 times a year. But the fruit trees only fruit once a year. So I really want to maximize, my space and grow things that are more valuable to me. So growing vegetables year round, and using space to grow vegetables is more valuable to me than growing a fruit tree that I may get a bunch of figs all at once, but then basically the plant is taking up space for the rest of the year without doing nothing for you, So while I like to have some fruit trees, I have some currently in pots. These are just like 15-gallon pots. And, I did get some figs off these guys last year, and, they were decent. So even if you don't have a lot of space, I would encourage you guys to actually grow some fruit trees for some more delicious fruit than what you could buy at the store that is usually picked underripe. So last bit I want to share with you guys real quick on this mini tour is this bed here, and in this bed we have the cilantro, which always when it heats up, it basically bolts first, so I've been actually harvesting these guys and eating it. But in addition, after the cilantro is gone, if you guys can see in between the cilantro, actually planted fairly close, within only like maybe 2 inches from some of the cilantros, I have onions growing. So then these will keep growing. Meanwhile, I pull out the cilantro, and then I could plant other things where the cilantro was. And then in addition, in the middle, I have one of my favorite perennial plants, which is actually, this is known as the tree collards. And actually this is a special tree collards because it's actually a cross that I made right here in Las Vegas. It's a cross between tree collards and dinosaur kale, as evidenced by the more ruffled, long, oblong, dinosaur kale tree collard leaves.
John, thanks for joining us today here on this episode.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
You've given us an opportunity to check out all the really, really cool things you've got growing here in your garden. You've got just a massive array of a lot of things. There's just no way we would have been able to actually cover and do video of all of it.
We could have. It might have taken a couple hours.
It might have taken quite a while. So what all do you got going on right now for the season?
I mean, now this is like I'm in between seasons actually, because I have my winter season, and now all that stuff is bolting. So now I have to start harvest and prepare it, put it away, preserve it, and then I'm planting new stuff for the summertime. So I got all kinds of things in little 6-packs, 4 inchers. I'm rooting cuttings inside of the watered spinach. I got all things going, and I still need to get more plants because I usually buy my plants instead of start them from seed. Just because I travel so much and I'm kind of an impatient guy. Right. So starting things from seed like 2 months ago, like I can't do that. It would have been, anyways.
Yeah, I still got a lot of seeds, and one of the things too is also trying to keep the timing when you're trying to do your seeds and everything, to make sure you're seeding them at the right time so you have your plants ready at the right time for when they need to be going into the ground and all that, and that can be really challenging. So you definitely take that challenge out of the gardening. Which really makes sense, because if anybody's watched John Kohler's videos, you know that you're a really, really busy person. You're out doing so many different things. You got traveling to different places to see different gardens and everything. You're growing your own garden. You're making videos, and a lot of this gardening is for your own food. I mean, this is your food supply. The gardening is for my food. The videos are for fun. Yes. So with all of that sort of stuff going on, how do you kind of keep all of that together? How do you keep?
It's about having goals and priorities, and my biggest goal is to eat healthy in life. Mm-hmm. So that I can be healthy, because you are what you eat and absorb, and also of course have a healthy lifestyle. So getting enough sleep is really important, and if you have enough sleep, then you're more able to think consciously and do what you need to do. And so, that just drives me. And then I got to keep my business running too. And then I come out and garden for fun and for, growing my food and harvesting. Right now, this time of year is a little bit busy because things are bolting and I got to get them picked and processed and, used and eaten or dehydrated or freeze dried or, fermented.
Yeah, and a lot of gardening just doesn't really care about your schedule. It's got its own schedule, right?
Exactly. And then I got to replant. So, I'm just trying to juggle all these things, and I just do the best I can, and there's always tomorrow, right?
Always tomorrow, absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of people have a reason for gardening. A lot of the passionate gardeners out there have a real kind of reason for them getting started. What got you into gardening?
So I really only got into gardening just because of my failing health. So my health had failed over like 25 years ago now, maybe 28, I don't know, somewhere around there. And I almost lost my life because I had spinal meningitis, which was caused by complement immune deficiency. I was hospitalized. The doctor said I might not make it out of the hospital alive. So luckily I got through that, only through higher powers, I say. But then after I got out, the doctor said you could have a reoccurrence of this or any other disease later, and basically have bad genes. So I had to figure out like how to turn around my genes so that I wouldn't get sick again and potentially lose my life. And that led me on a whole, can of worms.
To your vegan lifestyle.
So so then I went, not just vegan. I don't even like to say I'm vegan because you could eat, Doritos and Coke and eat Oreos and be vegan.
Right.
Drink beer. That's not very healthy in my opinion. I like to say I eat, fruits and vegetables are the dominant part of my diet.
Right.
I eat them in their minimally processed form as possible to maximize their nutritional content so that I could be healthy. Because, when I first got sick, this research wasn't out yet, but now there's research that shows there's a study of epigenetics, which means that our genes are influenced by our environment, whether that's the food you're eating or whether that's toxins in your home or the air you're breathing. But anyways, I really try to focus on the food and have the highest quality food because in my opinion, the highest quality food will make the highest quality person. And if you go to the grocery store or even Whole Foods and you're paying a ton of money for organic stuff, just because it's organic doesn't mean it's the highest quality. It just means that it's grown with a certain strict rules, which means you can't spray certain kind of toxic pesticides and use, chemical or, man-made fertilizers and all this kind of stuff. Doesn't mean it's balanced, doesn't mean, it has the most nutrition, really. And, so that's why I grow stuff. So if I want to eat this kale, I pick it and it goes right in my mouth, or it goes inside, I chop it, it goes into, like last night, I picked a dozen of these leaves of kale, it got chopped right up into my salad and I ate it, 5 minutes later. So that's maximizing nutrition because after a food has been harvested, if it's been in storage and shipping, it starts losing nutrition, right? And the nutrition that's getting lost is not like the minerals. Those probably don't really go anywhere, but what gets lost are the phytochemicals, and these are like the antioxidants, the polyphenols, and all these things. And these are the most critical components for health. And if you're in a standard American diet like white bread, white flour, processed meats, these foods have very little, if any, antioxidant power, which means you're just going to get sicker faster. So I want to encourage you guys, whether you want to call yourself vegan, whatever you want to call yourself, eat more fruits and vegetables and minimize the junk food, the processed food. You guys know junk food's not good for you. It's called junk, right? And minimize the animal foods, right? Animal foods.
It was labeled appropriately, right?
Right, yeah. Animal foods have I think it's 64 times less antioxidant power than fruits and vegetables. And then if you get into some of the specific fruits and vegetables I grow, like my purple carrots probably have, I don't even know, 1,000 times more antioxidant power than animal flesh.
Could you put maybe a percentage of what you grow for yourself versus say what you have to purchase otherwise as far as?
Yeah, so as you guys can see, I grow mostly vegetables. I have a couple fruit trees that might go off a couple times a year, but mostly I grow vegetables. So, I don't grow every vegetable either. I grow the vegetables that make the most sense to me, that are going to save me the most money, that are also the easiest to grow. Well, I do have some celery growing here. I planted this celery the same time I planted this, the kale, and the kale's already bolting, and the celery is just barely started to grow, So it doesn't make sense for me to invest a lot of space to grow celery when I could just go buy it for $2 a head for organic. I grow some carrots for fun, but honestly, most of the carrots I consume, I buy. But most of all the greens that I eat actually come out of my garden, as well as herbs. I grow a lot of different fresh herbs, sage, rosemary, oregano, mint, catnip. I got thyme and, chives and all kinds of different kinds of herbs. So, So of those food categories, I could say I eat close to 100%, except maybe some herbs. I eat dried herbs that didn't come from my garden, that are just pre-packaged, like taco seasoning or something like that. Right. But of the leafy greens, like pretty much like 99, it's going to be rare you find me buying greens. Now I did buy some lettuce at the store, despite having over 100 heads of lettuce that I need to harvest and eat, and that's because they're romaine hearts, organic, 3 for $1. And so I want to make a video actually juicing romaine hearts for people.
Always out for a really good deal. Huh?
Yeah, and I don't want to waste my romaine hearts that I would rather eat whole. I'm going to juice these cheap ones to show instead of making celery juice, somebody could have romaine lettuce juice, which actually on some levels are more nutritious because there's this celery juice craze right now due to the medical media.
You got started gardening because of needing a more nutritional plant-based diet to help you out with your health. Did you have any experience with gardening prior to when you started?
I had zero experience with gardening before I started. I had gone to my parents never grew anything. We had a lawn and just, whatever weeds in the backyard and, whatever. And then my grandparents actually had a farm in Monterey, Salinas in California. And they grew stuff in the periphery, but then the next door neighbor called Mr. Blakely, he had like a huge farm. I think it was probably growing conventionally, but I remember going down there as a kid and picking strawberries out of his fields and picking different things, and I thought it was really neat. Oh, and my grandparents always had a big field of mint. That's because it takes over and they didn't really do anything. I just remember all this peppermint, unlimited peppermint. You could eat as much as you want.
So ultimately you came to gardening kind of out of necessity.
For me, it was out of necessity and to take my diet to the next level, because even though I was eating the healthiest foods on the planet, which are fruits and vegetables, especially the leafy greens and herbs, I want to make it better. And the only way to make it better, my diet, was to increase the quality of the food, because I couldn't really add any different kinds of food that I wasn't already eating. Well, in addition, also gardening allowed me to grow new varieties of food, some of which you guys saw a little bit earlier. That literally money can't buy. You can't go buy Riccardia picroides like in Whole Foods. Even if you had $100, I'll give Whole Foods $100 if they have Riccardia picroides. I mean, it's even rare. It's even hard to find the freaking seeds. I had to order them from out of the country. Now the Cretan rock lettuce, you can't buy that, anywhere in a store to eat, but you can find plants.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard though too.
You garden out of necessity, but if anybody watches your videos and everything, you can tell that you have just a really amazing passion for it. So out of starting gardening and over the years and everything, how do you maintain that, drive and that passion for gardening?
Well, I mean, I think you guys got to have some hobbies in your life, and when I got into gardening, I really liked it for a few reasons. Number one, plants don't talk back to you like people, and I tend to actually, as many people might think I'm really extroverted, I'm actually quite introverted, believe it or not. And so I really love just being with my plants. Like, I love my plants. I mean, some of my plants, like I have some Argretti coming up, and they're just looks like little blades of grass, and that just made me so happy because I planted those seeds last year. I didn't technically germinate them, but I did because I put them right there. I knew they were going to do good there, and now they're coming up without me having to have lights and water them and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, my garden makes me happy, brings me great joy, and I mean, it's just, gardening is so important. It's just, I've realized how important that gardening is, and taking control of the food you eat and having responsibility to grow it yourself, because we put responsibility into the grocery store or into the fast food restaurant to prepare our food, and they're not doing it the healthiest way. They're doing it for profit, and when profit gets involved, as in many parts of our government and our lives, things get messed up, in my opinion. And I won't really go any further into that, but
right. So you just mentioned about being an introvert versus an extrovert, and one of the things I wanted to kind of mention and talk about a little bit is that you're very generous with your time. Now, one of the things I would explain is that when I first started doing videos, I had watched your videos for years, and when I made a goal for myself, I'm going to go and see the National Heirloom Expo, I'm going to go see John Kohler give a talk there and everything, and that was just kind of one of my goals. But when I got there, I was really kind of amazed to find that after your talk was done and everything, people gathered together to get the pictures taken with you, or to ask you questions, or to to mention things and talk with you about things. But the one thing that really kind of surprised me was that you literally gave everybody every bit of time that they wanted. You stood out there for must have been a couple of hours with talking with people and doing everything. And you can tell through your videos, as you make your videos too, that you have a passion for teaching people and showing people what, you know, the importance of gardening, the important things to grow. What is it that drives the inside of you that, you know, drives that passion for not just yourself, but to share that with other people, and to, you know, like I said, give people so much of your time when you're out there doing these amazing things, you know, with gardening?
That's a good question. So I want to comment on the time thing. So, you know, the time that we have should be your most important and precious resource that you guys own free and clear. I mean, yeah, maybe people think, oh, money isn't more important, but, you know, time is even more important. There's only a limited amount of time in a day to get things that you need to get done. And in generally, like, some people, if they heard you say that, they might think that I'm not generous with my time, because, you know, I get all these comments on YouTube, people contact me through Facebook and, you know, all these different ways, and I never respond to anybody. Right. So that, John, you're a miser with your time. You don't give anybody your time, you know. So, I mean, I think it comes down to, like, you know, my personal time is my personal time. When I'm in the public and I'm giving a talk and I'm at the Heirloom Expo, that's like me. This is like when I get to have time and share with people.
Right.
And so I'm not just going to give my talk and disappear. You know, I'm here to connect with people, to help them along, because I have allocated time in my life to do that at that point in time.
Yeah.
That being said, my regular day is just packed of just working, gardening, making food, and I don't have time to, like, talk to people on the phone, and I don't do that. So if it's the right time, then yes, I will make time available. And the other thing is that I put a lot of time in to make my videos, which, you know, I do this for fun and enjoyment, but a lot of time goes into it. Like, I don't have to make a video on how I'm making, you know, freeze-dried, you know, whatever, arugula salad or something, and make a video about it and spend, like, you know, I could have been done with the process 2 hours earlier if I didn't make a video, but it's important for me to share this with people, because that's an effective use of my time. Okay, it's going to take me 2 more hours, but hey, if I educate somebody about how they could, you know, preserve their salad harvest in the best way possible and make it even fun, exciting, and delicious, then I'm going to take the extra time in my day to do it, because I want to be important. You know, I want to make a difference. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Is, you know, I made a promise. You know, I prayed when I was going to lose my life in the hospital that if I'm given a second chance, I'm going to live in service. And this is me living in service, giving my time when I can allocate that, whether I'm making videos or whether I'm at an Heirloom Expo, you know, whether somebody comes to my house and I make time, if I'm available, to have an interview like you came over, you know. So, but, you know, there's a limit to this because I can't just give freely my time away, because I basically, just like everybody else out there, I'm just treading water, man, trying to keep up with everything that I got going on in my life. And there's things that I'm putting aside that's just literally not happening still, and, you know, you got to make priorities.
I mentioned that too because, you know, as I said, I watched your videos for years before I started making my own videos and doing that. And maybe some of what you were mentioning about the comments that you got and stuff could be, you know, something maybe you would perceive that, and I kind of maybe thought, oh, John Kohler, you know, he's the big YouTube gardener, but, you know, I want to see his talk. I've watched his videos and everything, but like I said, that was one of the things that really kind of surprised me, was that you made yourself accessible for people, of course, in that space, of course, and which is a really great opportunity if you do want to meet John, is to go out to events like the National Heirloom Expo and go get your picture taken and ask him some questions about gardening and whatnot, because I think that's a really, really cool thing, and did kind of not necessarily surprise me, but I just found it really, like, I don't know, just really cool. You know, it really is important to people like me, myself too. Like, not just whether or not I'm a gardener, which is a lot of what you get, is a lot of, you know, gardening questions and gardeners. You don't necessarily get a bunch of YouTubers coming to you and asking you all this sort of stuff as I would and whatnot. But I really found that to be something that was really kind of pushed me along to the next level of what I was doing, because I kind of found that to be really encouraging. And you did that personally by spending your time and taking the time to do that, which is really appreciated by almost anybody out there, I'm sure. So don't mind all of them comments in the comment section.
Yep, come here.
All right.
This guy wants to be in the video.
There we go. Let's put him in the video. Stay on your lap, probably. A little Oakley there. So as we're talking about, it really definitely shows the passion you have for gardening and sharing all of those gardening tips and tricks and things that you've learned along the way. Do you consider yourself a gardening teacher?
Yeah. I would consider myself a gardening teacher, and become a better teacher, you need to become a better student. So I also consider myself a big student, and I'm constantly learning and researching things online. And, I visit so many different farms and gardens and get to interview people that know more than me. And then, I get to learn from them so that my knowledge base expands. And then also, what people don't understand is I go to a place and I'll make a video at a farm, but I'll take a tour of the farm with the owner or whatever first. I'll soak up all the knowledge so that good enough so at least I could explain it back to people in maybe even more common man's terms, so that people could understand it more than maybe some of the technical terms that I get when I visit the mushroom grow, where a lot of the stuff he's talking about I don't really know, but then I'll ask him actually questions and he'll explain it better, so then I could explain it better. And then at the same time I'm learning, I'm building brain plasticity, which is very important, to keep your brain placid, plastic, so you keep on learning and growing.
Definitely. And so with your videos and everything, you can kind of see the evolution of your becoming more of a student to being a teacher and everything, and that's one of the things that you really bring, is that kind of knowledge. And I say with my videos, I don't consider myself a teacher. I consider this a garden adventure, which is me primarily being the student and kind of showing what I'm doing along the way. So maybe for me it's maybe just more at the beginning stages of where you started at, and maybe I'll feel a little bit more comfortable with some of that technical stuff as it gets down to it. But it's good to have you out there doing that and showing that for all of us out there. How long ago did you start doing YouTube videos?
So actually it's 2019 currently, and it's been about 2009. So I wanted to make a video on my 10-year anniversary. I don't know if I did or not. I think I passed the date. I think it was in February this year.
Well, it's always good time. Always a time within that 10th year, right, to be able to do that.
Yeah,
10-year anniversary.
Maybe at some point. I always have good content coming out, so I don't just want to waste the content on an anniversary video.
Right. But it's good to celebrate those type of things. A good decade making videos is a
that's kind of
big
crazy
accomplishment. Right there. So how many videos do you think you've made in the 10 years?
So I think I have over 1,400, maybe over 1,500 now. I don't really count them too much.
Not counting them anymore?
I mean, it's a big number, So 14 to 1,500 videos. I don't know how many ended up online, because I filmed a lot. Sometimes they don't end up online for whatever reason.
All right. So we talked about earlier that you started gardening out of the necessity for your health and all of that. What got you started, and what moved you towards making videos for YouTube? And putting a camera on yourself and sharing everything.
So basically, I learned, I had been gardening probably about for maybe 5 years before I started making videos, like in the periphery of my yard. But I never really got big. So then I started looking into YouTube videos to get motivated about converting my front yard into a raised bed edible vegetable garden, which actually I saw videos by the Gervais family.
Right.
And I saw what they were doing. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And I saw videos on what they're doing, but they didn't explain how they're doing it.
Right.
So then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make videos to show people how to do it if they want to do it, and I'm going to show what I'm going through. So actually, I started out kind of like where you are, just kind of I wasn't like a teacher. I was just showing people what I was doing. But then over the years, I've learned more and more, and now I consider myself a teacher because I've been doing it for so long. And I've learned a lot through experience and through meeting other people and talking to other people and reading and things like that myself.
A couple more questions for you here. What advice would you give aspiring gardeners out there?
Just start if you haven't started, That's the biggest thing. I mean, learn as you grow is what I like to say. I mean, I didn't become a gardener as good as I am today from, just not starting.
You gotta get in and
you gotta get in, and I'm not perfect, I mean, you've seen plants. I have plants that are bolting. Some plants got aphids, and some plants got this. I got, all kinds of stuff. But my garden isn't perfect, But the thing is, over the years, I've learned what works and what doesn't work, and I just keep repeating what works, and then you learn what doesn't work, and you don't do those things anymore. There's certain crops that I don't grow in my garden because I know they bolt fast, they attract more bugs, or whatever it is. And depending on your climate, your specific climate zone, they're gonna be different. I'm not gonna be growing, lettuce in the summertime because that's not gonna work, right? I'm gonna grow, Asian greens that love 100+ degree weather. You know, and I didn't learn about these Asian greens overnight. I'm like always learning, experimenting, and finding new plants, and I try things and I find out what works, and I keep repeating that.
Yeah.
And that's how it is, you know. So you just got to get started, and you learn from your failures. And actually, failure, you should not be scared of failure. You should actually welcome it. I welcome failure. If something doesn't make it, then more importantly, I learned what I could understand and figure out why it didn't make it, so that I won't do it again. And more importantly, then I could share with people out there that watch me and follow me my experiences in my particular garden, you know, in this climate. And then I like to just do that and share other people's experiences as well, so that, you know, we could all learn from each other. And that's how really the world is going to get better, is by learning from people's experiences.
Yeah. And you mentioned failure. That leads me into the next question. Is there anything that people should not do in the garden?
They should not do in the garden. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, I would not recommend spraying chemical pesticides. I would not recommend using, you know, synthetic chemical fertilizers made in a factory. It imbalances the soil. I mean, some people might disagree with me, and if you want, I mean, I definitely would always say that it's better to grow a garden even if using synthetic chemical fertilizers than not growing a garden at all. But, you know, my model is to grow back to nature. And what people fail to understand is that nature is a perfect system. And when we try to subvert that system by feeding specific nutrients without others, and we just have excessive plant growth really fast, you know, the plants don't have the same nutrition in it as if they grew more slowly, and if they had all the different trace minerals in the soil to pull it up. Because I'm not after super huge hunkin', you know, plants with giant leaves, which, you know, when they happen, they're nice. But, you know, I'm in for more nutritious plants that have, you know, trace minerals that are not in grocery store food, you know, like chromium and, you know, vanadium and zinc.
Right. Well, those are definitely some good things to not put in your garden, for sure. So, all right, John, I want to thank you so much for joining me today on this episode here of The Urban Gardener. It's been really great to have you show me around the garden here. I hope everybody else has really enjoyed this episode. If you can, please give it a big, big thumbs up for having John here with us today. And if you have any questions, comments, or anything at all, you know, get down in the comment section below. Ask some questions. I'll try to give you the best answers I can. And hit the subscribe button. Follow along with more garden adventures as we continue growing here on The Urban Gardener. Thanks again, John.
All right. Thank you. All right, man. That was easy.
Easy enough, right?
Yeah, man.
Didn't
I'm not
put you on the
stressed.
spot too much, right?
No, not at all. Like one question, I was like, kind of messed up a little bit, but I'm good. Whatever.
Below, if you haven't already, please follow along with to sit down and talk with. Let's get growing. So what you got growing on, John?
All right, I'm gonna start over.
No.
People call that go-to cola, but it's Centellica. It's not Centellica asiatica. Well, you could call it Centellica asiatica. Maybe Penny. Is it Penny Wort? No, Penny Royal. I forget the name. Let's just do this slowly.
All right.
Totally wrote it out.
You'd be laughing at me forever about it. It's good.
It's all good, man.
Does that look crooked? No, it's. Seems like
And the camera's at an angle. I don't know how it's filming.